logging.
Hello, everyone. A very good evening, good morning, good afternoon if you're joining us from different countries. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm Shivani. I'm a member of the NHRDN Young Talent Council and your host for the session today. Today, we are in conversation with Amit Kumar, the Managing Director and North America Market Lead for Accenture Strategy and Consulting. We will be in conversation with Amit, understanding his journey, how he has grown through the C suite, learned to manage different businesses, and what are some of the learnings and advice he has for all of us from his own journey. So, before we get started, perhaps we'd like to know Amit a little better. So, Amit carries over 2.5 decades of rich experience and expertise across areas of business transformation, operational excellence, transportation management, procurement, asset management, and much more that I am obviously not able to cover. He has over 24 years of experience serving clients across different sectors, be it telecom, high tech, mining, chemicals, energy, retail, industrial, automotive, and consumer goods industries across varied markets, North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. In his current role, Amit is responsible for the profitable growth of Accenture's consulting business across all industries and functional domains, leveraging a global talent pool. He provides leadership to over 4,000 management consultants serving Accenture's clients in the North America market. Thank you so much for joining us today, Amit. We are very, very honored to have you here and very excited to learn from you.
Thank you, Shivani, and thank you, NHRD, for having me. Great pleasure to have you, have you join me, in this forum, and I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you.
Great. Before we get started, I think just a quick ground note. Structure the conversation is that there are a few things we are curious to know from Amit. So there are a few questions I'll be asking. And in different points in the conversation, we'll also invite you to ask your questions. And that's how we'll keep it interactive. So as we go along, if you have any questions, keep them ready, raise your hands. We'll call you at the appropriate pauses, and then you can unmute yourself and ask your questions directly to us. In the meanwhile, please keep yourself on mute and off camera. You can unmute and bring yourself back on camera when you're asking your questions. With that, let's dive right in. So, Amit, just starting right at the beginning, what motivated you to embark on a career in human resources? What were some of your early experiences like?
Sure. Thank you. It's a funny story. I don't know if it's a motivation or it was something else. So I graduated from St. Stephen's College in Delhi. And then as you know, as a normal path at that time was, go write an MBA exam, get there, and I got placed from campus to work for a company which was at that time one of the most powerful company on the globe, 3M. And I started working with them in sales in Delhi. Okay. The role was very simple. 3M had an industrial tapes and packaging division. I was supposed to sell to automotive OEMs those industrial and packaging tapes. And so in the heat of Delhi on a motorbike, going around from factory to factory, and this was NCR region, so Delhi, Faridabad, Noida, that was the belt I was covering. After doing that for some time, I was like, I'm not doing this in the heat of Delhi. And so I said, I'll do my MBA in human resources. And the sole driver was not to be in the sun, to sit inside an office and do the job while working from office. So not the brightest of motivation to start a career in HR, but that's how I started. And then after that, of course, even today, I think a short, the MBA in HR was greatly helpful. I did work in human resources for, I think, maybe 2 years. But one of the couple of lessons that we've learned, and one of them that I follow even today in my current role, I don't do any meetings without my HR leader sitting alongside with me. That's one part of the business, and ours is a people's business, it's a services industry. And so people play a great role. And so that's one thing that I've never ever given away. And I continue to do that every day. Every meeting, I have to have my HR leader alongside the other partner in business. The financials are what they are. It is the people who makes the difference and make it happen. I think that's extremely valuable.
No, thanks so much for sharing that. And even your reason, I think I really appreciate the candor. The lesson that I am learning is that, just be honest to yourself for what your
Yeah,
reasons are and
absolutely.
just take it from there.
Yep.
Great. So you mentioned sales as well. I think before I move forward, maybe I just also want to ask you that what is it from sales? What kind of either rigor, ways of working, or, just what had entered your bloodstream and brought to human resources and then ever since after that?
Look, for any function, whether it's human resources, sales, as a leader, you need to know the business. Okay. We exist, for driving profitable growth of our company, for making sure that shareholders gets the returns, and our employees sort of benefit from that. And I think the fundamentals of sales, fundamentals of knowing your product or services that you sell, uh, even fundamentals of finance, okay, is extremely important lessons that was learned. The other thing that sort of the softer side of it was it is a highly competitive market. And so, the empathy, the relationship that you build, your ability to speak up and make your presence felt, I think all of that has a lot of bearing in what you shape and how you evolve as a leader in making. Okay. And so whether you do sales or not, I think some of those aspects are extremely important. And I think sales function sort of drives it from the crucible. You're right in the front line, and so it's baptism by fire right at the beginning. But my advice is to upcoming leader has always been, you need to work across geographies, but you need to work across functions as well. Get out of your comfort zone, get to know the company that you work for. And there's no better place than being in the front line in the sales, interfacing with the customer. So that is the big lesson that I took away.
That's true. I think it's crucial for all of us to know the business. You need to understand the nuts and bolts, and it adds the most valuable context. Definitely. Since you also mentioned that it's a hallmark of your leadership that you'll always have an HR in the room in your meetings, I'm curious also to know what are your expectations from the HR leader in the room? In the sense, what do you expect them to do? Or, you know, what is it that they're supposed to sense for and be there for also?
I mean, look, it will vary a little bit by industry. And, for us, it's the most important thing that, understanding people. Okay. Business without the people side, is sort of, it doesn't work. I mean, it's the role of our HR leaders to translate, the capabilities of our people, the practices and the processes into business results. Okay. Uh, and so understanding, they act as the catalyst. And this, for that reason, we call our HR leaders HR business partners. So beyond just knowing the people side of it, the skills of it, the financial part of it, we already talked about it. Financial understanding the business from an inside out perspective is extremely important. Okay. They are the custodian. And when I'm saying they, all of the HR professionals are, I see them as the custodian of the policies, of the values that the company brings to our customers. Okay. It's that catalyst role of translating people's capability into business result is the most important thing. And so knowing the strength of your people, knowing the challenges and opportunities in the business, underlay that with finance understanding a little bit, is probably the most important thing. And the other thing that we talk a lot about is focus on the strength. All of us have development needs. Nobody is perfect, but it is how you bring the talent and the skill and the strength of your team together to manifest itself in the market, to manifest itself in against competition, or clients is what is important. And that translation role, that catalyst role, can be done. Nobody can, no one can do it except HR. No one. I mean, nobody has the eyes and view of our talent and business at the same time. Okay. And it's a very critical role. It's a very critical role. We sort of a lot of time undermine this role. But I think the more you empower your HR leader in a company, in a setup that you're in your teams, the better is your business results.
Thank you for sharing the foundational reasons behind that. I think it's great that you mentioned the analogy of a catalyst, right? So it also, when you say catalyst, it also highlights sort of the inside outside balance that the HR is trying to manage within the team. You bring in an outsider's perspective, but you're also a part of the team, and you are able to see the interplay.
Yeah.
So, and it also reminded me, I think, of this one quote a very famous business leader and philanthropist once made, where he said that I also look at the HR function as the conscience keepers of my organization. I think something you alluded to as well. Very
Yeah.
valuable to know of that. Uh, since you mentioned the developmental needs of the team, understanding how what are the ingredients, how does the team come together, and how to leverage it to be high performing. I'm also curious to understand that in your journey, who were perhaps some of those people who saw that in you, you're like your unique X factor, and who wanted to nurture you, who mentored you, who were those, and what are some of those values and experiences in mentoring that you've held close as a result of those experiences?
Look, I mean, there was not one. I mean, as we grow through the journey, from being a child to growing, to going to university and a young adult and starting a professional journey, there are many people that come along the way, and each of them, in their unique way, sort of leave their hallmark on who you are and what you do. I mean, I can start, best place is probably, starting at home. And, our parents are, we sort of often don't give them enough credit, but that's where you start your learning journey. That's when you start your leadership journey. And I always, growing up, I always looked up to my father. He had a big circle of people, sort of like a fan following. Okay. And he always stood behind his team. I think I take that as a very important attribute of a leader, that you need to have a fan following in the team. You need to have a fan following in your company, and you need to stand behind your team. You need to empower your team as things evolve. And then looking at my mother, who was a doctor, her constant feedback about upskill yourself, go learn something new. And we are in this age where technology is changing so rapidly. Things around us is changing so rapidly. We have Gen AI now impacting a lot of part of our business. And so your ability to sort of unlearn things, learn new things, and constantly upgrading yourself is important as a leader. And so I think that played a role. When I started my career with 3M, and at that time, 3M was probably the most innovative company. And I'm pretty sure all of you in your respective household use one of their most commonly sold product, which is the Scotch Brite. Okay. Scotch Brite, which is used in our Indian kitchen for scrubbing purposes, was largely a market adaptation in India. It was meant to scrap and clean the surfaces in the industrial side for the factories before they put their tapes and adhesives in. And it's a great example of innovation and adaptation to the market. And that played a role, that you need to encourage innovation. You need to think outside of the box. So, there's loads of things, after my MBA, I joined a company called Electrolux, which, Kelvinator in India was a big brand. At that time, was one of the world's largest home appliance maker. I worked for a very, very seasoned, HR leader, Shantanu Banerjee, passed away a couple of years back. But he taught me to take initiative, build your brand. You need to have a brand, you need to have a fan following. And so there's tons of significant influencers who come along your journey. And even in Accenture right now, one of the very one of my mentors, a guy called Paul Bollinger, who retired as chief operating officer of the company. he said, you need to take risk. Unless you take risk within the guardrails of the firm, and not always have an insurance plan for what you're doing. Sometimes you'll fail, sometimes you'll succeed, but you need to take that risk. And at the same time, uh, learn to tap people on the shoulder, who you think are almost there, and let them take the challenge. And the same thing I follow for myself. If you look at my career over the last 25 years, you'll see one thing which is very constant, which is one role has nothing to do with the next one, and the next one has nothing to do with the next one. It's been like a project. And it's for that reason I've also moved across, 8, 9 countries in the 25 years that I've been around. If somebody taps you on the shoulder and say, we want you to do this, chances are that there is more to the puzzle that you know of, and so you do it. You need to trust your leaders. So it's a whole lot of different experiences, different mentors along the journey, starting with your parents and family, who sort of shaped the journey, and that has helped me to be what I am right now. And so that's been my experience.
Thank you for letting us into that. That's surely very expansive. Uh, One thing, perhaps is tangential, but one of the thoughts that I had of what you said, about trusting your leader, your current role having nothing to do with, or like just some similarities with the previous one and even fewer similarities with the one before that. I think it's also very relevant as a lot of us on this call and otherwise, be it at our workplaces, HR, and otherwise, are constantly also navigating this journey between specialization, generalization, and how there are such strong, almost camps on both sides. So maybe I just would want to dig deeper into that because you've had this experience which is so expansive. Like I was just reading out expansive across industries, about specializations, across markets. So what would your I won't say advice maybe, but just some of your guideposts on this generalization versus specialization debate?
Look, you need to have a brand, okay? And the brand doesn't have to be about your skills at work, okay? People need to know that you're capable of doing something or you are known for something. That does not necessarily, from my perspective, translate into being a specialist or being a generalist. I think my view is, don't specialize, don't get into specialization too early, because you don't know what things will unfold in front of you as you progress. I mean, going back to 97 or 2000, when I started as an HR professional, I had no clue that I'll be doing what I'm doing right now. Okay. Even when so I've got two roles in Accenture right now. One, I lead the North America market. My other role is to lead the consulting side of business for Accenture's manufacturing and engineering side globally. When I was asked to take that role, I had no clue why I'm doing it. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a manufacturing guy. I've never been to a shop floor. All right. So, and this is where I think, attitude comes into play a little bit, and your willingness to do things beyond normal comes into play. But I always believe that, having a brand, and the brand of, being a problem solver or getting things done, delivering results, empathetic to people, doing next line leaders, fan following, whatever, all of those things are extremely important. But I do not believe in specializing too early. You need to have a broad-based experience. You need to, experiment and experience things. And especially early on, that's the best time to, experiment, fail, learn, fail fast, learn faster. That's more important, because that's when you'll know the true side of what success looks like and what failure looks like, and learn from it. I think that's where I stand.
I, I really appreciate that sentence on, learn fast, fail fast, like almost having agility in your career within that sentence.
Absolutely.
So that's very valuable. Just to our audiences, I have one more question before I hand over to you all also, if anybody would want to ask. So please do keep your questions ready. I'll field mine and then you can raise your hands and we'll take one or two from the audiences. Amit, the other part, as you described your journey was also about learning different things, right? Like how you manage your team, how you learn to take risks, how you also just learn to do different roles as you go along and bigger challenges as you grow. Uh, Give us perhaps a peek into your learning process. Over the years, what are some of those cornerstones that you now have every time you're trying to learn something new? Just a peek into that, perhaps.
Look, I mean, learning and unlearning is a constant. I think that we all need to sort of get used to that reality that things around us are changing, and we'll need to unlearn older ways of things and learn new things. And so, uh, I mean, typically when I get into any role, I have two learning coaches. Okay. And learning coaches are people, that I deliberately block a couple of hours a week and to learn from them. One is almost at the top of the pyramid, which is hear it from the leaders on what they have to talk about this business. Okay. Uh, and they share their perspective, which is largely strategic, directionally where we're going, and so on. The second learning coach that I have is absolutely at the bottom of the pyramid. And that's a very different perspective. So in our world, a partner or a managing director, and getting their perspective on things. And the second one is an analyst who's fresh from a business school, joining, as part of the practice, and doing things, delivering projects, etc. And that gives a very different perspective. And bridging that gap and understanding the two perspective is how I learn. So what do our leaders think of our business and our clients, and what is it actually happening at the ground floor? Okay. And that encourages new ideas, and makes you write the decision. So I think that's been my philosophy, learning coaches, and then of course I spend a lot of time reading, I think, as well. And this is not the newer way of reading on iPads, etc. I like to read books, physical copy, and so that sort of keeps you engaged, learning from others' experiences. You don't need to always reinvent the wheel. There is always some goodness happening around, and so it is important to learn from other people's experience. So those are the two things that I do very actively.
I tend to sometimes imagine what you were saying visually. So I'm like, with your learning process, I'm imagining on one hand you have a telescope and in the other you have a microscope, with somebody at the top of the organization, somebody within, and you're constantly switching lenses almost.
See,
But
it's important because you're surrounded by people, and that's a very small subset of the total. So for example, in my North America role, there's 4,500 some people, and there's only about 15 that you're interacting on a regular basis. You lose the pulse of what's happening in the ground floor unless you interact with the analysts and consultants. Okay, that's one reason. The second thing why I do it is when we drive, the growth in the business that we drive, yes, there are leave the macro environment aside, that economics of things being nice or not so nice in the external environment. The propeller of growth for us internally is the bottommost of the pyramid, which is our analyst pool. If they are smarter than us, they'll do things faster and better, and they'll push their next level to go up, and that will push the next level to go up, and that's what drives business results. I mean, our business as consulting is very simple. There's demand and there's supply, and if you unitize it, it's our analyst pool at the bottom of the pyramid whose work really drives credible impact at our clients. Okay. And so hearing their perspective is extremely important because they are the internal driver of growth. And then it also helps you strengthen your bench strength, from a leadership perspective. You spot talent, you fast track them, and all of that. So having that perspective at the bottom of the pyramid is extremely important.
No, definitely. I think there is a great lesson in just being connected across the organization, tapping into all kinds of networks that exist, all kinds of leaders, individuals, to just be very, very deeply embedded within the org. I think that's important for all of us across career stages to be very mindful of, as perhaps working arrangements change. Sometimes you're within a physical workspace, sometimes you're not, but that's at the heart of all learning in an organization.
Yep.
That's very valuable to learn. I'll now open it up for questions that any of our audience members have. So you can just raise your hands. I'll call upon you, and then you can unmute and ask your question. You can just use the raise hand icon. So I think, Rajesh, you have a question. Please go ahead and ask. We are unable to hear you, Rajesh. You're unmuted, so it might be an issue with the mic volume, or you may want to reconnect your mic. Still unable to hear you. Okay, Rajesh, perhaps in the interest of time, as you figure out audio, we'll take Vibhuti's question, who also has one. So, Vibhuti, over to you.
Hi, Amit. Pleasure to have you and pleasure to listen to your talk today. I'm Vibhuti, and one of the questions that I have is that consulting is a very, very people-focused and people-heavy business, right? The capabilities of people define the success of the business. What are some of the qualities that you look for when you're hiring, somebody who is at a senior level, say, for example? Secondly, between the role that a leader should play to develop talent and what should HR's expectations be? How do you see both of them, working together to develop a successful leadership pipeline in an organization?
Look, the first one for me is pretty straightforward. It's as simple. We look for the right attitude in our leader. An attitude sort of. We assume that when you're hiring people at the senior level, that their past experience, their work, their education background, etc., sort of reflects their ability, and so the cultural fitment is important, and the attitude is important. I think if we get the attitude right, which is where attitude is what gives the ability to make the right versus wrong decisions. It's something that you can control in any circumstance that you're in. So I think that's the most important thing. It's when you go through the interviews, etc. It's not an interview. In Accenture world, when you're hiring senior leaders, it's very conversational. It's more understanding everybody's driver and motivation to change, and what have they done in their home front, how have they overcome challenging situations. So I think that's the thing that we look for significantly, and that's, I think, held me in good stead. When I look at my own career, as I said, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a manufacturing guy, and yet I run the manufacturing business for the firm. And I think you need to have that willingness to unlearn and learn and take on challenges and do the right things within the guardrails. So that's the important bit of it. On your second part, which is how do we develop leaders? And I said HR plays a significant role. I think what people often mistake is the role of leader is to drive business results and be the ambassador and champion of delivering financials and good results. I think leadership is also about taking risks. Leadership is about taking decisions. It's about empowering and standing behind your team. It's also about taking tough calls. And I think that element of taking the tough call and making the right judgment. I mean, look, strategy is not about what you put on PowerPoint slides. Strategy is about taking decisions. And that is driven by attitude. That is driven by, your state of mind, how emotional or passionate you are about things. And so I think that's where the role of HR people and HR business partner comes into play. you need, our HR leaders are, expected, we expect them to sort of know the individuals, the personas in the play inside out, and inside out meaning what is their, emotional driver? What is their achievement driver? How are their leadership style? Are they known for building the team, surrounding themselves with the right people? Do they stand behind and, sort of, are they the custodian of the policies of the firm and the values of the firm? So I think that's where the HR and the business converges, and that's the way I have sort of done it in my career in the last 25 years. But there's no right or wrong answer, but attitude and being partnerial with our HR business, HR function is what I've done always.
Thank you, Amit.
Thanks, Vibhuti, for your question. I'll just come back to you, Rajesh, in case your mic is working now and you want to take another shot. No, we are not able to hear you. If you want, you can put your question on chat and we'll take it up. In the meanwhile, I'll take up another question that we have from Mangesh, and the kind of team, Amit, that you lead, which is so diverse across markets, industries, one assumes even age groups. How do you look at diversity and inclusion? What are some of your key values, perhaps, and what importance do you place on inclusion in terms of both your business and how you lead your team?
Look, I mean, the team that I have is spread across the globe, and I think there are cultural challenges, there are language challenges, but they're all at the same time. Our clients are pretty global, and we need to make sure that, irrespective of the culture and the language challenges and the barriers that we have, that we come across as one Accenture to our clients. Okay. It is also important that the team comes together to deliver results and to, drive innovation and reinvention that we're expecting in the marketplace. So I think diversity brings that change in mindset, that you have to think differently, that you can innovate and drive change and behavior in the market. So it is something that we see as, the right thing to do. You have to invest in the future leaders, and the portfolio of the team that you have has to be very diverse. So it is a deliberate part of our strategy and engagement. We ensure that a lot of emphasis is paid on cultural sensitivity. I think it's just becoming more, and as the world is becoming more and more virtual, and the talent pool is getting more and more spread across the world, some of these things will become important and has been gaining prominence. So it's a very explicitly stated part of our strategy. We make, when I look at my leadership team, deliberately you make sure that there is enough diversity. It's not only about gender, by the way. It's about nationality. It's about people of abilities. You need to give, you have to force that change. And, it will be a slow burn. It takes a lot to change the mindset, but we have to lead from the front, and we are leading, from the front. And, I take a lot of pride in making sure that our leadership team at least is diverse, culturally sensitive, respect for, personal boundaries and time. And I think that's helping. It helps drive innovation. It helps drive business results. And I think once you do it and you're successful, there are others who are waiting for that one silver lining, and then it catches on. So that's been the journey and the motivation.
I think what we're really appreciative of is the persistence and the patience to say it's a long arc, but we'll keep at it.
Yeah, and you have to lead from the front. I mean, there is no second thoughts about it. We live in this multicultural world, and you have to be deliberate about diversity, inclusion, cultural sensitivity, and all of that is part of the differentiation that you bring.
That's true. Absolutely true. Before I move on, Rajesh has been able to add his question to chat, so I'll just ask on his behalf. He says, quotes the famous quote, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." What's your perspective on it?
I think strategy is about making choices. Culture enables it. So I don't think that there is a convergence, in terms of one versus the other. One enables the other, and I think culture enables the strategy. Once you've made the choice, as I said, strategy is not about putting PowerPoint slides together. It's about, understanding the environment, your customers, the macros, your internal capabilities, and saying, okay, in this theory of constraint that we're operating in, or the guardrails, this is the way we'll do it. Okay. None of it will see the light of the day unless your team stands behind it, unless the team is empowered, and that comes from culture. So I think culture is the driver or the driving force, along with the people and the talent and the skills and ability and attitude to sort of to drive the result. I don't know if that answers the question, but I don't see that as a conflicting priority.
No, I think very nicely captured how they are ingredients to the larger recipe, and how must they work together. A few sentences back, you'd also mentioned, about when you said that if your analysts are the smartest, that means they're going to keep pushing the higher levels up as well, and they're going to drive that increasing capability perhaps as we go along in the organization. I want to sort of broad base that to also understand from you what other elements are there to how you approach building a culture of innovation within your larger team. And I think some members on the chat also have questions around this in terms of building skills, competencies within your team. What's the recipe? What's the philosophy?
See, I think first and foremost, you need to appreciate that the world is changing. Okay. And so the more aware you are of what your industry is changing, how that's evolving, and Gen AI is just one of those things, right? And every few years, in the old times, it was every few decades, there was a next wave of growth and the next S curve that came in. Now it's getting more and more rapid. So understanding that landscape of how things are evolving is important. Second is acknowledging that you have the skills or you don't have the skills in your team. I think that's the first and biggest hurdle. We have to understand if there is truly a capability that exists. And I think more often than not, we try to say, no, we have it. And we go down a journey only to realize that we didn't. So appreciating that and getting to that realization is probably the second most important thing. Saying once you acknowledge that you don't have the skills or capability and that you need to acquire, build, do whatever, then you have a clarity. Now, after that, it is understanding of clients' need, the market need, talents and skills, and strategically investing there. And this is where diverse thinking, a blended team, etc., comes into play. I mean, for us, I'm going back to my second role of running the manufacturing engineering consulting business for us. We created this business of digitization of engineering and manufacturing in 2020, March of 2020 in Accenture. We call it Industry X. It's branded Industry X. In 4 years, it's now a $7.5 billion business in 4 years. And I'm responsible only for a small consulting part of it, which is about 450 million. But and for all of you who work in manufacturing related sector, you would know that that's core capability for our clients. And so and there's a lot of knowledge that sits on people who've been there 20, 30 years and their experience. Digitizing that is probably a significant Herculean task, not only from technology perspective, process perspective, but also change management. Getting your shop floor worker to say, hey, from tomorrow onwards, you'll punch this data on an iPad or a computer. Not an easy task. And so when we started this business, we said, we don't have the skills. Yes, we do traditional manufacturing work. Yes, we do supply chain work. And so I think over the course of last 4 years, we've also invested close to $5 or $6 billion in acquisitions, just buying, capabilities in that space to, augment our capability. And not only did we buy those companies, we also put them in leadership roles. So, when you when you put together a group for innovation and you sort of merge them with a larger team, you very quickly kill their DNA of thinking outside the box. And so you have to keep them protected and isolated with the right support structure. In our case, we give them the leadership role saying, you drive, we'll follow. And so I think that's what is helpful and important. And so as from a learning and innovation perspective, you need to create that team, which is a diverse team. Give them the appropriate funding, investments. Be patient. It's not going to yield result overnight. And this is where they'll fail, succeed, and more failure than success that will come. And so being patient there is it's going to be a long haul, and that's important. So just being aware of some of those things.
I think what you've called out is surely a Herculean change, a Herculean task the organization has taken up, and with also supporting its clients through it. Change is
Yep.
pleasant for nobody. For many, it's plain traumatizing. So it's a huge responsibility to be able to take one's own and other organizations through it. I
Right.
also wanted to double click on what you've mentioned a little bit about, when you said that any process of change or learning happens when you're self-reflective first, when you admit to yourself that, okay, we don't have it. We need to build on this.
Yep.
Take us through perhaps how does that work when you have to create that as a culture, right? When your leaders can be honest with you, with themselves, what does that kind of safety look like, and how does one foster that?
Look, you have to respect, opinions, and starts with, couple of things. I said, if you have a seat at the table, speak. And when you have the seat at the table, forget your career levels. You're there because you've earned it. And if you've earned it and then you're at the table, put your career levels aside. Okay. And think broader, beyond your capability. So I think that's the most important thing. And so for driving innovation, for driving a change, it doesn't necessarily have to come because, from based on your career hierarchy in the company. It comes from the right thinking. And we're very non-hierarchical anyways, in the firm. In Accenture, there's only about 5 or 6 career level in the consulting side of things. So it becomes a little bit easier for us. But you need to be accessible. You need to promote freedom of opinion and I think challenging the status quo. When our folks come in the door, especially the campus one, we say, look, ask those silly, trivial questions. Ask why are we doing things the way we're doing, and then from a core value perspective, we all have an obligation to leave this place a better place than we inherited. And that's just now, what in the broader society, what we're calling, what under the CSR banner or sustainability banner, we have an obligation to leave this place a better place. And that's as simple as that. And so encouraging freedom of speech, ability to speak up, questioning status quo, and standing behind them, as long as there are sane, sensible question and people are ask them in the right way and, follow the right process and protocols, I think it's fine. And that's what we encourage, saying, speak your mind, raise your hand, take initiative. It's okay to fail. And rewarding, there are times we bet on some things and it doesn't go well. That does not mean at the end of the year, when you do your performance process, that you don't appreciate. And, yes, it is a failure, but it was an effort worth the run. And so if that's the situation, reward that, recognize that. And that's how you encourage people to, not always be in the rat race to deliver right and positive results. That also teaches people it's okay to be the bearer of bad news. It takes a lot of courage and conviction to stand up and say that, or own up that I tried and I failed. And that characteristic of an individual is worth really appreciating. And so thinking out of the box, raising your hand up, poking your neck out, admitting failures, I mean, those are the things that drives this behavior.
Definitely. I think there's a lot to mull upon over there. And that's a very powerful statement that you made, that perhaps all of us need to be mindful of that. If you're in a room, if you're on a table, leave your career level aside, have the confidence, say, speak your mind. I think that's
Absolutely.
just something to learn and build the muscle for, because very few leaders would tell you that. So take good advice.
Yeah, and it makes a difference. There's also, having seen, running a large practice, there's also a cultural side of, what I call very Indianness about it. Our values of sort of growing up, we normally don't question status quo. We normally sit and look up to our seniors, to our elders in the home and family and say, okay, tell us what we need to do. I think that change needs to happen. And especially as India sort of is growing through the wave of growth and the opportunity that we're seeing, we have to little bit of, I think, in a very subtle way, set aside that Indianness part of our value system and be the driver. We don't need to be a fast follower anymore, and we're not. We also need to take the leadership responsibilities, and part of that is, speaking your mind and, not being a participant at the table, give opinion, right or wrong, doesn't matter.
Definitely. I think that's, like I said, that's a muscle to build for sure, and all of us to keep in mind. We have many questions from the audience. I'll open up the floor for one from Louis, who's been raising his hand for a bit. Then post Louis, we can take one more question. Just keep your hand raised and then we'll take it from there. So Louis, over to you. You can unmute yourself and ask. Louis, you're on mute. In case you're saying something, you can just unmute and then ask your question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now you're audible.
Yeah. So thanks for such a wonderful insight. So I was just thinking, how is this HR movement to C-suite, especially in a context where it is a family-owned business, where the competencies, yes, does matter, but beyond competencies, there is some familyness is required, right? So could you share some insights on how it is different from the usual context where in organization we have succession planning, skills, competencies, all that? But how does it is it really makes a difference, or is there something unique that we need to really catch up?
Look, we do a lot of work with family-run businesses as well, and a lot of our clients are privately held companies and large companies. One thing which is constant, Louis, across all that, they're looking for success and growth. Okay, there may be a little bit of lack of transparency and processes, especially when it comes to the final decision making. It may be more prominent in a family-run environment where, you don't really, you don't have a clarity on which way the decision goes eventually. But the process till the very end is exactly the same. You have leader growing up, people who've delivered results, people who they're valued by the owners and the entrepreneurs that they work for. I don't think it's very different even till the very fag end. Now, in a privately held company versus a publicly traded company, the only difference is that some people, and some means a broader set of people, could be the board of directors, etc., have a little bit more transparency than a privately run. That's it. And then, as I said earlier, at the end of the day, when you get to that decision making, picking one of the two, for example, if there are two candidates in the final run, it's always going to be very judgmental. And that judgment, is more pronounced in the private sector than in the public sector. That's it. But beyond that, I don't think there's anything different. So follow the process, and the process could be a little bit, different, but they go through the same journey. It's just that, instead of a group of people taking that decision collectively, it's probably one or two people or a family taking the decision. But at that stage, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's something like this, you reward people for their performance with bonuses and variable compensation. Okay. However, promotion to next level, Red, is not it's not a very objective, quantitative number thing that, saying, okay, you delivered this million sales and therefore you're ready for next level. It's always subjective. And it's just, that's the difference, how you take that call. So the process is similar. It's just at the top, at the very end, that there could be transparency or lack of, or a group of people making that decision versus a few family people. That's it.
Thank you, Amit.
We can take one more question from the audience. So in case anybody would want to ask, you can raise your hand and I can call upon you. Radhika, okay. If you can just directly unmute yourself and you can ask your question if you're unable to raise your hand.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. I just wanted to ask, good evening, Amit sir. I just wanted to ask that we are not actually into family-run business, but yes, our director who leads the company is a kind of a believe in leadership approach. But sometimes it happens that the HODs which we are hiring, sometimes enter into gossip culture, and they also want to talk, and they sometimes doesn't mind what are they saying, the public statement they are not minding. I am a kind of in a confusion how to maintain the balance between the leadership culture and the culture which the HODs are getting into. How? Yeah.
Look, you're not alone, first of all, Radhika. So this is, whether it's a small company, large company, private company, public company, there'll always be people who, would want to talk around and, get things done in a different way. I think what you need to do is start from the top. Okay. And the culture of the setup of the company is what comes from the top. Your leaders needs to walk the talk. Okay. There is no merit or benefit in calling it a public shame and all of that. So refrain from all of those. I think these are more coaching points and developmental points that you need to pick up individually. Now, this is where giving that bad news or being, not being the bearer of good news all the time as a leader comes into play. Okay. You have, whoever is the lead has to, sit down face to face and bring it up in a very candid manner that, this is the way it should be, and whatever is going around is not the right way to do things. Having said that, can you put a lid on it? Probably not. Okay. I'll give you a positive side of this. It's a very good source of change management. Okay. There are a lot of information that is out in the public domain, which is not supposed to be, and especially if you're making a transformational change in the way you approach business, etc. This vehicle of gossip, which is not the right way, becomes a very good change management vehicle. So you want to get things differently done, use that in a positive way, but I won't encourage going down that path. It's not advisable. The most important thing is to sit down across the table, talk it out, and monitor progress. And that's the way to do it, but it has to start from the top.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was great. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll take one more question from Nilanjan. Nilanjan, I think you're on unmute. You can ask.
Yeah. First of all, sir, thank you very much for this insightful, discussion. My question to you is that, how to know that, once, when are you ready for the C-suite role? Because, there will never be a situation when you will feel that you know it all.
No, there will never be. There will never be.
So how to get that confidence and how to, start at times, when you get such kind of, invitation for that kind of a role, so how to know that you are right or you are ready for it? Thank you very
See,
much.
it's your gut feel. This is the aspect where nobody teaches leadership, for example, right? It's your attitude. Do you know the fundamentals of your business well enough? Do you understand the financials of your business well enough? Are you able to take tough decisions? Do you have the team that you can bank on? It's very, very subjective. There is never going to be a prescription which says if you do 5 things, you're ready. Okay. And it's like, what are the key tenets of being the right leader? And that's where it comes. Are you able to take tough decisions? Are you able to empower your team? Are you able to, learn and unlearn? Distinguish between passion and emotion. Are you inclusive? Are you a role model? Do you have a fan following? So, are you innovative? Think all of those. At the end of the day, you also have an obligation to yourself to stand up and raise your hand to your leadership team and say, I'm ready for more. I mean, I'm telling you, 2 years back, I sat in front of the chief executive, the CEO for our business, and I said, hey, Jack Azagari, he's the CEO for Accenture Strategy and Consulting. I said, Jack, I'm 45. I'm not ready to retire at this age, doing the role that I'm growing. And so, what can I do to help you? And then there was a change of role and, change of location again, moved from Houston to New York. But you also need to ask. You have to have that conviction to stand up and ask that question. And when you have that conviction, you need to make sure that you've checked all the boxes that you can check, right? Run through this process, in your mind and how this will work. When you raise your hand and say, I want to do something more, what are the obvious next steps that's going to happen? Your lead or your boss will go and ask 4 of his peers, his boss or whatever, and say, what do you think? Right? And that question will come if you are almost there. If you're halfway the journey, you'll get a very straight answer saying, hey, do this thing for another year or two and do the following, and here are your next set of priorities. So take cues. Where are you in that spectrum? Okay. If you're in the lower end of the spectrum, which is early days, you'll get a different set of answers. If you're midway through it, you'll get a different set of answers. If you're on the almost towards the end, you'll get a very different set of answers. And the stakeholders, therefore, are different, right? On the top end of the spectrum, we're almost there. Make sure that your peers, see you as a leader. Your boss's peers have a point of view around it. And it's important that they have a point of view around you. Not having a point of view is not good. Either they like you and they say you're ready, or they don't like you and they say you're not ready. You don't want people who are silent and quiet about, oh, we don't know, and therefore I don't have a comment. That's not the right place to be in. And so it does require a little bit of polarization and, making sure that you have a very candid discussion with them. So it's whole sort of, it's like your own checklist, but there is no, again, it's a checklist for your own self. It's not a prescription that will get you there.
Thanks, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for that question, Nilanjan. I think there's so much for all of us to take away and learn and perhaps implement as we go along in our careers, and to be more than anything else, to be really mindful of that. And what I'm also taking away from all of this that Amit you said is about taking a bet on yourself and also trusting your leaders if they take a bet on you. So that's always important to remember.
And the first step to that, Shivani, is knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Know yourself. Are you ready to pick up that phone and walk into the office and have that conversation?
Yeah, your own conviction first. Thank you so much for all your time, all your literal gems of wisdom, the big picture, the small picture, the tiny picture at all ends. You left us with so much both practical and philosophical principles to consider and absorb, and as we go along in this journey, be more self-reflective about it. We have many more questions from the audience, and as I'm sure all of us have just you sparked so much curiosity that there would be. Unfortunately, we are not able to take all of them. But at the same time, thank you so much for joining in, Amit, for being so generous with your insights and your life experience. Thank you so much to our audiences who made time for this conversation. This conversation has been brought to you by the National Human Resource Development Network, NHRDN. It's an autonomous, non-for-profit, professionally managed organization. If you're interested in conversations such as this, just getting to know leaders such as Amit, leaders across the industry, learning from them, consider joining NHRDN. And we hope to bring you more such conversations. So thank you so much for your time. And we hope you have a great evening and a great rest of the week ahead.
Thank you, Shivani. Thank you all for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, madam, sir. Thank you.
So much clarity
Take
of
care.
thought.
Bye.
Really wonderful, wonderful session.
We'll get the recording.
But all aspects of